Hey, Boy Manning here. Josue Pavon back in the house as well as
he still
Noa
does the hey
Dalzell.
thing. I love it.
He hasn't changed.
I was getting like flashbacks during the show, and just Bobby and Josue back together, and then now Noah's back.
And Noah.
And Noah. Well, you know what I mean.
Well,
last year.
Nothing's changed because I am putting massive importance in this game here.
Oh yes.
Two games really between the Celtics and Thunder.
How freaked out is Bobby? Let's see.
I'm not freaked out. I actually think the Celtics were pretty close and competitive in this game. They lose to the Thunder here and go 0 for 2 against Oklahoma City. Their most likely finals opponent, it feels like here. Lots of possible options, but if this is going to be the championship matchup, a lot of challenges here. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's greatness and what he's done through 2 games. You got Chet Holmgren back in the mix and all that lineup flexibility on the Thunder side, and then that historic level defense that they're able to play against Jaylen Brown, who they shut out in this game. Jason Tatum, who was better, but they held him to an inefficient fourth quarter. I have concerns following this one. Noah, are you worried about this matchup now, seeing that the Celtics lost 2 games?
I wouldn't say worried. I would say it would be a tough series. And just, historically, teams that are that good defensively just make it hard, right? And you don't want to rely on like your shots falling at a particularly high clip because you just never know. And last year, Tatum and Brown both didn't have a great shooting postseason, especially from 3, in particular Tatum, but both of them. And so you don't want to rely on that. And I felt like even tonight, early on, you needed Derek White to have it going. You needed Al Horford to have it going to have a good chance here. And then obviously they cooled down very significantly, shot 18% from 3 in the second half. But that's my biggest worry, is that you really need to shoot well against this team. And you might, but you also might not, and you don't want to leave it up to chance. And so just from a physicality standpoint, like, I know everybody talked about how they need to meet the challenge. Jaylen took a lot of the onus on him about just needing to be more physical, more aggressive, but I don't know that I know exactly what that looks like because you can't foul them, you can't be overly physical, and they just have the personnel and the system and the discipline to do it. And so it's a little bit of a tough matchup, yeah.
Biggest thing I heard after is more cutting. Need more cutting against the way that the Thunder play defensively because they're just moving bodies over, shifting in the gaps, that sort of stuff, and that opens up those cutting opportunities. So the Celtics can hit more threes. They can do different things. I love their offensive rebounding in this one. So I'm not going to say that the Thunder have totally solved the Celtics or that they have this giant advantage over them, but they look like the team most prepared to beat the Celtics in a 7-game series, I'd say.
Yeah, but look, the way you started it, I think is dead on because they're gonna force you to beat them from the 3. So if that shot's not falling, so be it. But at the same time,
that's what it felt like tonight. Like if the Celtics 3s fall, they're gonna win. If they're not, they're probably not against them.
Which historically they do fall. That's the good news, right? Is that they are a good 3-point shooting team, and especially of late, like they've been back to normal.
How do the Thunder feel about this matchup, Josue?
I think they feel great about it, to be honest, but they're not trying to get too ahead of themselves because they know there's such a high mountain to climb between now and June. We talked about it during the postgame show. Like, I just think they have such a tougher route to get there, and they know that off of experience. Obviously, what happened last year. They were top seed in the Western Conference, lost in the second round. Anything can happen in the playoffs, obviously. But I also think that they know that every game presents its own unique challenges. And with this matchup, I just felt like, again, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, they made 15 threes in the first half. The chances of them doubling up on that or even coming close to that aren't likely. So let's just stick to what we're doing. And it was still, a really close game at halftime. So I just think that that's really what it boils down to. They're not going to – the thing about the Thunder defense, what makes them so good and so tough is that they're not giving up those high percentage looks. It's just not – it just doesn't happen often. And when Hartenstein came back, when Holmgren came back, it was like for Mark Dagnall, it's like, wow, finally I can tweak my lineups around these two. I was surprised that they didn't start. I'm sure Jalen Williams had a lot to do with that, but normally that's his go-to, to have those two start and just have those two guys sort of play off of each other defensively where they don't give up a bunch of layups or they make it really hard for teams to get into the paint and get those high percentage looks. And, to see them do it this time around with Hartenstein coming off the bench, I thought was huge. And I think it really did showcase what Chet can do, or, we already know what he can do.
He set a tone.
But coming back from injury has been this kind of a gradual process with setbacks.
Yeah.
He missed a handful of games, or at least a few games before he kind of found this stretch. And then coming off of this back-to-back, I think was a huge motivation factor for Chet because he hasn't done that all season. He played back-to-back against the Nuggets. They split the 2-game series, but this team is just coming off of a loss with a day in between. It's just they're really hard to beat. And that's when they really showed their defensive strength in this one. But without J-Dub, without Jalen, I I honestly thought it'd be a much closer
Winning
game.
without him significant.
Yeah, especially here. Not only against the Celtics, but doing it in at TD Garden. I thought this one would be a nail biter at the end, but that obviously wasn't the case.
I got a question for you, Josue, because I think if you're looking at the Celtics team, like, best case scenario, they don't play the Thunder in the finals. Like, just looking at the matchups, I think it's a matchup that just poses them difficulties because they're so good at exploiting mismatches defensively, and there's just not those mismatches on this team.
Right.
There isn't a guy, there aren't multiple guys you can go at. Versus Cleveland, like, I love that they can go at Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. Even though they've improved defenders, like, there's still a clear matchup advantage there.
Right.
What's the biggest, if Oklahoma City doesn't make it to the finals, why did that happen? Like, what's the biggest threat to them in the Western Conference from your standpoint? Because I know for a long time it was Dallas, but Dallas doesn't really exist anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that became like a rivalry down there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, for sure. Honestly, I look at the Denver Nuggets because of what they're able to do. I mean, obviously with Jokic is a big deal, but when Jamal Murray gets it going, I think that really rattles them, especially when it comes to their backcourt. Because when a lot of the times between Lou Dort and whoever he's going up against, he wins that advantage. So I think that presents a lot of trouble because you got arguably the best player in the NBA in the front court, and then you also have someone like Jamal Murray who can defend as well. On both ends of the floor. And then the other team I'd say is the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, that's the team that kind of stands out just because of their size, their length, what they do defensively. Shai's going to get his. It's just really hard to slow him down. But when you take the other guys out, that's when their offense really dies down, especially if that three-point shot isn't falling.
Yeah, and I think if you lose a guy too, again, I'm stunned they won this one without Jalen Williams because you only have so many creators on that side. So if you're losing one of your main creators, if you're them, I think that would probably be the most likely reason that they don't make the finals.
Porzingis is big, man. That's the thing.
Well, I was just going to go there.
Yeah.
In terms of the Celtics stacking up better here, Noah, what do they need to do? Obviously, bringing back Porzingis would help some, but what do they need to do to better compete with this team if the time comes?
I think they need to make things more uncomfortable for SGA. And I think people talk all the time about the stat line, and you look at Luka versus the Lakers. If you look at Luka's stat line after that game, he had like 34 points on 50% shooting.
I think this is the rare matchup where you have to take that guy away. But if you watch this game, if you watch that Lakers game, like Luka was uncomfortable for a lot of that game. And regardless of whether or not he scored his points, when your best player is uncomfortable, it just changes everything for that team. I didn't think they found anything that really disrupted him. And maybe that's just where he's at in his career right now, where it's just really, really hard to make him uncomfortable. But I think that if it was game one tomorrow, I would love to see something completely different defensively than what I've seen in these last two games. And I don't know if I would. I don't know if they're sitting on things they just didn't want to show. But that was the biggest thing I was thinking because Jalen, we've given him a lot of credit for his defense. I love his on-ball defense against certain players like the Luka Doncic of the world, the James Hardens of the world. There's a prototype that he excels at those matchups, and there are guys like SGA that nobody really seems to excel at, but clearly he gave Jalen a hard time today. And again, it's not that he had 50 points, but he set the tone for that team, and they were never really uncomfortable. Yeah, we want to see more Tatum on him, and I think that's going to be a tough situation for the Celtics. Even in a series, like you want him to be doing all this stuff for you offensively. You want him to be playing 40 minutes and then a full game on SGA. That's tough, especially if you don't have other options there. So that's the matchup to watch for, and the Thunder have a guy that can stack up to or exceed Tatum's level, and that's about as big of a factor as anything in being able to beat a team in a series. So this feels inevitable. Much can happen before June, and that's the next time the Celtics will see this Thunder team if it does happen. Josue Pavon has them covered on the ground for clutch points out there in Oklahoma City. Great to have him here.
No, absolutely, man. Good to be back.
For sure.
Are you coming to any more Celtics games, or is that it?
That might be it. It might be it for this season, though. But hopefully in the finals,
we miss
I'll
you,
be back.
Josue. Your energy is missed on this beat.
I miss
you can
you
feel
too,
it.
man. Just like hanging out,
Those random moments in the press conferences
after.
when there's nobody else inappropriately laughing loud except for me. Josue. It's just, I don't hear that Josue echo where it's like there's two of us inappropriately laughing. It's just me.
And the mic always picks it up no matter where you're sitting. Yeah, that's true.
For Josue Pavon, for Noa Dalzell, I'm Bobby Manning. Celtics lose to the Thunder. Once again, in their second matchup this season here in Boston. Their Celtics are off to Miami on Friday. We'll have coverage of that here on Celtics All Access and CLNS Media.
Shout out to our sponsor, Prize Picks. Guys, download the app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's the code CLNS to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.